Hi everybody, welcome to today's Transformation Talk. I'm here today with Vivienne McMaster. She is a photographer who does so much more than just take pictures. She helps people find themselves and their love for themselves through photography. So thank you so much for being here, Vivienne.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk with you today. Just as by way of letting everybody know, I took Vivienne's Be Your Own Beloved class recently, and it was incredible. Really, really amazing self-portrait class that's all about finding love for yourself. And so it was such a beautiful, beautiful experience. And that's why I want to say that you're just so much more than a photographer. You're a beautiful photographer as well, but you do so much more than that.
Thank you. And I'm so glad you joined in.
Yeah.
The photos blew me away.
Oh, thank you. It was so much fun. It was just really, really beautiful. I've spent a long time not liking myself in pictures. Mm-hmm. And so that was a really lovely way to get to know myself again through them. Yeah. So tell us how you came to this, because you haven't always done this, obviously.
No, not at all.
So tell us what happened.
Well, in a way, the reason why I teach women and just people in general to see themselves with love is because it's been my path of healing and learning. And I discovered photography about 7 years ago when I was going through a depression. And I knew I needed to change my life. I wasn't feeling happy. I wasn't feeling like I had control of my life. And I knew I had a lot of patterns that needed to change. And mainly that I had very low self-esteem and deep shame and hurt around my body. And I knew I needed to find my way to be happy again, but also to start seeing myself with love. So I started just going for photo walks because that made me happy. And I'd walk around my block with it was around the time cell phone cameras were coming out. So it was like the most basic possible camera ever, minimal pixels. But it was enough to just start seeing beauty in the world again and to start figuring out who I was. And so I'd take pictures of my feet, or like I'd find a beautiful flower and hold on to it. And so that was kind of the beginning of starting to heal my life in a way, my body as well as my life. I just kind of followed the path of my feet in these photos or my hands in these photos or turning it on myself. And especially this year, I'm feeling like I'm finally getting to the place where I really look in the mirror with love. And in these photos, like I just feel like I'm looking at her, me, with love, and teaching it, because self-love isn't just one day you get there.
Right.
You know, it's a long process it's a lifelong process of just showing up for yourself. So that kind of began in like a really rough patch where I just knew things needed to be different and follow this trail to be able to offer it to other people, just to see all these things that I've learned along the way. And it's really simple. in a way, it's just showing up for yourself and just making space for a different story to appear.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. I like that. So you said that you were going through depression, but you've also mentioned that part of that was because of a friend's death. Mm-hmm. Yeah, can you talk a little bit about sort of how that all tied together for you?
Totally. I tend to, when I tell my story, I went through this depression, and I say that happily, but I went through a depression about, I think it was 7 years ago, kind of the trail end of it. And it was around my late 20s when I felt, in a way, I think, do you know about the Saturn return idea of world's just shifting? And about a year before I moved to Vancouver and all this kind of started to unfold, a friend of mine committed suicide. And I wasn't unacquainted with grief and death by any means, but there's something quite different about the grief of suicide that I'd never experienced before. And it really just, because in a way, suicide is a choice, right? And she was this vibrant, a fellow Leo, lioness, like wonderful person. And in a way, when she chose to leave, it woke me up to the choices that I have in my life. And I realized that I was pretty much in the passenger seat in my own life and not taking control and not driving the car of Vivienne's life. So I was, that grief and the choice of suicide really just made me say, okay, you have so many choices. You deeply want to be on this planet, no matter what happens. That's never going to be my choice. B, how can you make choices to really live more than just a mediocre life? So it really shook me up to the core in a way that other griefs hadn't. Even very close people who've close to home. So and in a way, I think the depression was related to probably all the grieving I'd done up to that point. Just it can pile up on you. And at a certain time, you have a breaking point of like, okay, I have so much sadness, and I'm deeply lonely, and I just needed to fall in love with myself again and fill up that well of loneliness and sadness and listen to it. I actually spent in that depression. The hardest part of it was the 6-month stretch where I was just crying. I'd take the bus somewhere and I'd just be crying in the bus. I'd be standing in the street corner and I couldn't stop it, and I wasn't ashamed of it. I was just like, part of being here on the planet is weeping sometimes where you least expect it. And I just let myself feel it all, like all the grief and all the sadness. And I just felt my way through it to the other side. And then that's where the photography piece came in, when I just had to kind of start again. Yeah.
It's so interesting. I've talked to so many people who talk about their depression, and then they talk about the grief that led up to it. And it's interesting because there are just a few studies that are just happening in the grief world where they're realizing that the symptoms of grief and the symptoms of depression are almost identical, and yet no one has done any research on the differences. And it's so fascinating because it could be grief and it could be depression, or it could be a combination, but it's just, it's big. Yeah. It's just big. And I love that you talk about it in a way that you were just able to be really present with it.
That's so interesting, because in a way, depression is a word that communicates the kind of energy of it. Yeah. But now that you say that, I'm like, it was grief. It was sad. It was, yeah. Yeah. I think it was more so just like, in the grief realm. Yeah. Compounded grief, just being like, okay, let's feel it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And we're not taught how to feel it in our culture. It's not, we don't have a lot of safe ways to do that. And so I think especially growing up, if we don't have good models for that, it just builds up inside until, like you said, you get that tipping point, and then however it comes out, whether it's weeping in public or whether, whatever it is, it has to release somehow. And for some people it releases in depression, for some people it releases in anger, for some people in tears.
And in a way, there was there was grief of self too. It was a shift from the way that my life had been, and in a way, mourning some of the choices that I'd made along the way that didn't serve me. So,
Yeah, I think there's a huge letting go process around that for most of us. It's like, why did I do that?
Yeah. when you've had a lot of, in my high school years, there was, it seemed like every year there was somebody within my high school who passed away. So I feel like in a way, and then after high school, a partner, my sibling's partner passed away. So that was the very close to home one. And I had in a way had a break between that one and the suicide. But that's a lot. It is a lot. So I feel like when you're in your formative years, when there's just a lot of grief, you almost, I think I had to build up a shell of protectiveness to, and then the last one, Alex, kind of cracked me open. So I was probably mourning all the grief from age 13 up till then, right?
Wow. And it led you to this incredible journey of self-discovery through photography.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I just get so excited about it in some ways. I mean, it's not, unfortunately we can't avoid it. So it's like, if we allow ourselves to experience it, as you did when your friend completed suicide, and just really let us, I love that image of you following the footsteps in your photos and just letting it go wherever it took you.
Yeah.
And so what what do I want to ask you next? Well, first of all, I want to say you just had some photos on Oprah's website, Oprah.com. So I want to say congratulations.
Thanks.
That's very cool. Exciting. Yeah. And so what happened? Like, you started doing it for yourself and healing yourself, and how did it become what you do?
Yes, that's a great question. I completely did it for myself at first, and I hope that all the work that I get to do now is for people to do it for themselves. I think self-portraiture can have a way of kind of a bad reputation of it's for other people's enjoyment, or that it's something other people consume, but it's really something, it's a gift you can give yourself. And so the way I got to today was just by starting to share and blog those photo walks. I think people just resonated with it. And about 2.5 years ago, I just started to get a lot of emails, like asking questions about how did you do that photo, or what about this, or just kind of asking more. And often when you get those regular like questions, you're like, oh, they're hungry for this. I gotta start sharing. And I wouldn't have thought of myself as a teacher or a leader or a guide, but I just started to create e-courses at that point to share what I'd discovered, because I had kind of created all in those years of just going step by step. I'd kind of gathered up all these tools that I used on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to create self-care in my life. And so I just got brave, and it was totally scary, and offered them in an e-course. And they've developed over the years more from helping people with the technical photography part of it to just the love. That's teaching Be Your Own Beloved just lit me up, like even more than any other class I've ever done. And I was like, it's all about the love. Yeah, it's not about aperture. It's not about exposure. It's about love.
Yeah.
And it's such an honor to be able to do this as work. And in a way, I've been thinking about it lately. It really, I'm not a type A person. I'm not a, like, really go-getter type, though it might seem like that's from the outside, because I do put out lots of content and classes. But being able to do this work really on a daily basis makes me show up for myself in the same way I'm asking people to, because it is, even the work is slightly outside my comfort zone. So I need to show up, and I need to be brave, just like I'm asking people to do in my classes. And yeah, and it's amazing. I'm so excited. And just seeing the way that people are some people are at the beginning of that. Like I see they're in that place where I once was, and that I get to give them this gift, like, you can do it. And here's a tool. It'll help you. And then they pick it up, and within a month, they just like grasp onto it, and they're like, this is, and also the community that comes with online classes is, because we don't have to do it alone. Mm-hmm. I really encourage people to take the time for themselves, but to be able to do that and then share it and have people cheer you on and say, I totally relate, or, you know, that's wonderful. And just, I think that is even more special. And in a way I had that too, through Flickr, through sharing those self-portraits from the start. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had to say the community in the Be Your Own Beloved class was incredible. Just the amount of support and love for other people, and the amount of vulnerability that was present, and people's willingness to really be seen. Yeah. It was amazing. I mean, you just created an amazing space.
Thanks. And I'm always in awe of it. It happens every time. Like, people just, we realize that we have a safe space to share that we probably things we couldn't share with our close friends in person. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you do have some information available on the technical things, if people want to go that route, yes. Right? If they want more information.
Mm-hmm. But I have other classes where that's kind of more in depth. Mm-hmm. But I want us to be able to do this with our iPhones, and not let those bits of information that might be overwhelming stop us.
Yeah.
It's any camera.
Yeah, well, that was so fun for me too, because I always have my phone with me. So it was just like, okay, I'm going to take a picture right now and play with it. And I found myself, actually the other day, I had gone to a meditation retreat, and then I went for a hike because I needed to sort of embody what had happened. And then I was like, oh, I'm feeling really kind of, I don't know, I wasn't feeling very good. And I thought, I'm going to take some self-portraits.
Yay!
And I just, my mood lightened. I was having fun all of a sudden. It just shifted my day. And it wasn't that I was unhappy before, but I just felt kind of heavy. And I just it was this incredible magic. And I wanted to tell you about that because I was like, oh, thank you, Vivienne.
And it does shift your day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to tell people, like, go out and take pictures when you least feel like it.
Right.
Because it can brighten a happy day, but it can also really shift when you just when you need it the most.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if anybody doubts that, you need to read Vivienne's blog and look at her photos because she talks about that too, and the photos that you have are just amazing.
Thanks.
All right, well, I'm going to finish up by asking you the 3 questions that I ask everyone. So if you could wave a magic wand and change anything about the world, what would it be?
This is probably going to be no surprise, but I would wave my magic wand. I love the idea of a magic wand, and have people look in the mirror and smile with love and feel themselves falling in love like they would with another person, but with themselves. Mm-hmm. Every time they looked in the mirror.
Yeah. Yeah. Challenging.
So magic wands are for, right?
Yes. Yes. So what brings you the most joy?
I think going out in the world in search of beauty and joy was something I discovered a while ago, but it's really a daily, that brings me the most joy. Yeah.
And what is one fun or interesting fact about you that makes you uniquely you?
It's funny, when I knew this one was coming, I was like, oh, that's a hard one. I don't know why, but I think because I think I'm a little bit weird and quirky, but somehow this question feels hard. But I think something that is unique about me is the level of whimsy in my brain and in my heart. The whimsy and wonder in the world is something somehow through everything I felt like I've kept safe and sacred. inside and can get in touch with it pretty easily. So, yes, that's my whimsy.
I love that. It's such a great word, and it's a word I don't use very often. But when you say that, I think of your photos on your site, like where you've got striped stockings on, or where you've got like they're so playful, and that feels really perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Vivienne. It's been such an honor to hear your story.
Thanks so much for having me. I love watching your transformational talk, so it's a total honor to take part.
Oh, well, thank you. And we'll have all of your information, of course, on the website so people can find you. And the next Be Your Own Beloved starts soon.
Soon.
All right, so be on the lookout. Okay, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. If anybody is interested, it is affordable and life-changing. So, all right, thanks, Vivienne. Have a beautiful day.
Bye.